everybody and welcome to the full-time Cozy Time tag. This tag was created by Sam over at Novels and Nonsense and I was tagged by Michaela at Michaela Eve Reads. All the links will be down in the description. So I said when I did my Summertime Madness tag that there was a certain irony in doing Summertime Madness in winter. Likewise, it's a certain sense of irony doing the full-time Cozy Time tag in spring, especially since we don't call it fall here, we call it autumn, but that's alright, we're going with it. It's meant to be a 30-degree spring day here. It's looking pretty overcast at the moment, so I don't know that it's going to get to that, but, you know, fall. So question number 1, Crunching Leaves, the world is full of colour. Choose a book that has red, oranges, yellows on the cover. And for this I've decided to go with Death Before Wicket by Kerry Greenwood. This obviously is a very fall or autumn cover. We've got all the orange autumn trees there. This is the 10th book in the Franny Fisher series by Kerry Greenwood. Set in 1920s Australia. This one, they're generally set in Melbourne, but this one goes to Sydney and focuses on cricket, obviously. Question number 2 is Cozy Sweater. It's finally cool enough to wear warm, cozy clothing. What book gives you the warm fuzzies? And because I've been reading some children's books for Read Kids Lit Month, my immediate thought when thinking about books that give you the warm fuzzies has gone to childhood and to childhood favourites. And so for this I've decided to go with Snugglepot and Cuddle Pie by May Gibbs. It's an Australian classic, I guess, for children, and just looking at this gives me the warm fuzzies. I don't know how many times I've read this, and as I said, this is something that would have fit for Read Kids Lit this month, and now that I've pulled it out of storage, I'm kind of tempted to read it. So, we'll see what happens there. Snugglepot and Cuddle Pie are 2 gumnut babies, and so they live in the Australian bush, and there are good characters like Mr. Lizard, and then there are evil characters like the Banksia men. I'll see if I can find a picture of them in here. They're men kind of made, they look like the Banksia tree and were really creepy as a child. Oh, I just want to read it. Oh, here we go. There's one of the evil Banksia men and he has kidnapped somebody. But as I said, having read some other children's books this month, I got a real nostalgia feeling as when I was trying to think about things for the warm fuzzies, so there's that. Question number 3 is Fall Storm. The wind is howling and the rain is pounding. Choose your favourite book or genre that you like to read on a stormy day. And I don't know that I really have one, but what I've decided to go with for this is like fantasy or mystery, something that you can get really immersed in and taken away to another world. However, I will put the condition on this that if it is a thunderstorm, not just a rainstorm, but if it's a thunderstorm, probably I'm going to be outside or glued to the windows looking for lightning, because I love thunderstorms. I love the thunder, I love the lightning, and there's no way that I'd be sticking my nose in a book if there's a good lightning display going on outside, because I need to be watching that. Question number 4 is Cool Crisp Air. What's the coolest character you'd like to trade places with? And I had to think about this because while there's a lot of characters that I love and a lot of settings that I love, a lot of people, there's parts of their storylines that I definitely wouldn't want to go through, and it's probably true for this person too, but I've decided to go with Thursday Next from the Thursday Next series by Just Before. So Thursday Next, our main character is a literary detective, which is awesome in itself, literary detective. But also she has the ability to go into books. So in this particular book she goes into Jane Eyre. But in later books she finds that there's this whole kind of governing body within fiction, and she becomes part of that, so she can go into any book she likes. She hangs out with Miss Havisham, is kind of her tutor for a while, encounters the creepy Mrs. Danvers in like multiplied army format. There's a whole army of Mrs. Danvers clothes, so that part I probably wouldn't want to experience, but the fact that she gets to go into books and to interact with book characters, I think that sounds pretty cool and I'd like to do that. Question number 5 is Hot Apple Cider. What underhyped book would you like to see become the next biggest, hottest thing? Now, if you've watched my channel for a little while, you'll know that I am a huge fan of Australian author, or New Zealand born but currently living in Australia, author Juliet Marillier, and that I would love for any of her books to become the next biggest, hottest thing, because I think she's amazing and everybody should be reading her. But for the purposes of this question, I've decided to go with her Shadowfell trilogy. This is a little bit closer to the kinds of things that usually become the next biggest, hottest thing here on BookTube. It's a completed trilogy, and I believe this 3rd book in the series has just come out overseas, so it's a perfect time for it to take off. This is a series that's set in an ancient reimagining of Scotland. I've just noticed that the last book, her name goes up here, and is set in a time that's under the rule of an evil king, and anybody who's got any magical ability is persecuted, and so the only people who are allowed to have control of magic are those within his own staff. So he gets all the people, and then the other ones are culled. And so the story follows Naren, a young woman who obviously has some form of magical ability that she's on the run for. And so she's heard whispers of a rebellion group. So this would have been perfect for this week's Top 5 Wednesday. She's heard whispers of a rebellion group that exist in a place called Shadowfell. And she's desperate to find out whether they do exist and whether they can offer her sanctuary. And so it follows her story and her part in the rebellion, and it is so good. The whole climax scene in the last book, I was kind of in the middle of it during my lunch hour at work, and I had to stop, and I was just, the whole afternoon wanting to know how it all came out, because it was just fantastic. So again, now that the third book's been released overseas, is the perfect time for it to take off, because you can get the whole of it, and I would highly recommend it. And yes, please become the next biggest, hottest thing. Question number 6, coats, scarves and mittens. The weather has turned cold and it's time to cover up. What's your most embarrassing book cover that you like to keep hidden in public? So I don't have too many things that I'm hugely embarrassed about, but I found one that's something that could have gone in my NSFW tag, but I'll show it here. And that is The Breast by Philip Roth, and yes, there's a big breast on the cover. In fact, that's basically the plot of this book. This is a retelling of Kafka's Metamorphosis, but instead of turning into a giant bug, the protagonist in this one turns into a gigantic breast. Question number 7, pumpkin spice. What's your favourite fall-time comfort food? And I'd like to start by saying, in Australia we don't do pumpkin spice, and I've got no idea what pumpkin spice tastes like, and pumpkin spice lattes. I cannot fathom this. But, for myself, I don't know that there's a particular food that I gravitate towards in fall or autumn. Sam mentioned soup in her one, that soup is her go-to food, and I think that's true, that when the weather starts to get a little bit cooler you start getting more soups in the repertoire, things like pumpkin soup, so I'll say pumpkin in that form. I'm just not quite sure pumpkin spice. Anyway, but the other thing I thought too that starts happening a bit more when the weather gets cooler is I tend to drink more warm drinks, so tea. Tea will start being a bigger staple. I'm still having warm cuppas at the moment in spring, but in general I don't tend to drink so much warm drinks in summer, but autumn will be the time that I start putting warm drinks back into my routine again. And question number 8, warm cozy bonfire, spread the cozy warmth, who do you tag? And we're getting towards the end of autumn in the Northern Hemisphere, or spring in Australia, so time's running out for this one. And like I said, it's always fun doing the tags at the opposite end of the seasons, but that's fun too, I don't mind. So I've decided to go with that theme. I'm going to tag some more Aussies that are on my list. You can either do it now in spring, or what's left of spring, or save it until we get to autumn in Australia ourselves. It's up to you, or not do it at all. Whatever you feel like. But I'm going to tag Jane at Yes Miss Jane, Sophie at Sophie the Uneducated Reader, Nick at Biscuit and Books, and Mia at Against Idleness and Mischief. So that's my full-time cozy time tag. I was going to go and find a scarf to put on for this, but it just kind of didn't happen. Like I said, it's meant to be 30 degrees today, and I'm starting to see a bit of blue sky out there now, but in general it's not all that warm yet, but meh. So as always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!